Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everyone again. Welcome to the live chat. We got a big episode today, y'all. We got a big episode. There is a lot of breaking gaming industry news that is just now going down. We had like a couple weeks there where it was starting to look like the kind of sales updates and the business news was a little slow. Kind of as we transitioned, I would say mostly through October, getting ready for the next gen console launches. But boy, do we have a lot to discuss today. We've got a bunch of updates. So first, let me do some quick housekeeping notes. Then I'm going to break down the major topics that we can talk about today. First of all, thank you everyone that has donated in super chats over the last several months. I did an Xbox Series X unboxing that is up now on the channel. You can watch that here on the channel, unboxing the Xbox Series X. It is up and ready to go. So that was really, in fact, the box is right there from the unboxing. So if you haven't watched that yet, definitely go give that a watch. It's really because of you. It's thanks to your super chats I was able to get the Series X and the PlayStation 5. Getting them both would have just been one of them, but thanks to the super chats, I can get both. So thank you so much, everyone. So that's the main housekeeping note. I do have a PlayStation 5 on the way. It's going to be here at least right now. It's saying it's scheduled to be here tomorrow. So depending on what time it gets here tomorrow, I might have a PlayStation 5 unboxing up tomorrow. If not, then the unboxing should be up on Saturday. So either Friday or Saturday, we'll have the unboxing for the PS5 up on the channel as well. All right, so what are the big topics, right? I said it's a big episode, and that is because it is. So first of all, we have a comment from Phil Spencer that he tweeted out last night saying that Xbox Series X and Series S is the largest launch in Xbox history. Now, there seems to be a little bit of debate on what he means by that. Does he mean that it sold the most? Does it mean that he's just talking about the scale, considering how many countries they launched in? I have my own thoughts on that. I feel pretty confident a certain direction, but we can go into exactly what he meant by that and the different viewpoints on that. So we have that big topic we can talk about. We just got today an announcement that Ghost of Tsushima has sold over 5 million units. It is the fastest selling brand new IP for PlayStation Studios on the PlayStation 4. So Ghost of Tsushima just continues to do utterly fantastic. So we can talk about that, what it means for Sucker Punch, what it means for the franchise in the future. We just found out that Assassin's Creed Valhalla had a massive day one. In fact, that was the actual word that was used in the Ubisoft PR, is that it was a massive debut, and it really was double the players of Assassin's Creed Odyssey on day one. And as we all know, Assassin's Creed Odyssey was a really big success for Ubisoft. So to do double the amount of players on day one for Valhalla, that's going to be a very, very big launch. So we can talk about that. Trying to think if there was any other major topics. PlayStation 5 launched today. We don't have any PR. We don't have any sales updates on that yet. I'm sure there's going to be some rolling in from Sony, but we can talk about, what we're expecting. People that have your PS5s, you can let me know what you're thinking about it, and so on. So basically the way this chat works, for anyone that has never been part of this chat before, you drop your comments, you drop your questions down into chat, and I hit as many as I possibly can. Now, there's two ways to do this. First of all, there's the free method, right? Totally awesome, totally fine. I get to as many free questions as possible. But if you want to 100% guarantee that I hit your question, then the super chat option is going to be your best bet. Basically, you just donate into the super chat. It pops up an alert and lets me know. And then I get to your question immediately. The first questions I hit are the super chats because that is what you paid for. However, like I said, don't feel pressured to. Free questions are completely open. I can't guarantee I'll hit every free question because we do get a lot of them during the chat, but I will hit as many as possible. I have noticed that we do have several super chats right off the bat, so let me really quick hit those before we dive into free questions. Thanks everyone who's already donated into super chat. Plastic Hearts Podcast here with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts Podcast. Thank you for always being so positive and in my feed. Benji boy, don't blow that vape smoke into your PS5 just for the views. Happy PS5 day. What will you be playing first? Yes, so this, I would say, is a good warning to everyone. Be very careful about what you see online over the next, I would say, week or two in regards to like failure rates or in regards to issues with consoles. Here's the reality. People will be doing things to get attention right now. They'll be doing things, A, just for attention on themselves because they want the attention, or B, also to spin a negative light on competition. Just be careful. That can go any way, right? I'm talking about in regards to Xbox. I'm talking about in regards to PlayStation. For anyone that missed it, a video came out that made it look like the Series X had caught fire, that it was like, blowing tons of smoke, some kind of an electrical fire failure. It turns out it's not real at all. What they did is they blew vape smoke on it, and the Series X has a very powerful cooling system that's pulling a lot of air, and it was pulling that vape smoke up through the console. So yes, just be careful. There are going to be faulty units on day one, right? That is the way all consoles are, regardless. In fact, for me, back when PlayStation 4 came out, my very first PS4 failed within a week. Now that's rare, right? Most consoles that are going to be out on day one for the PS5, for the Series X, they're going to be just fine. But there will be some that fail. That is just the way launch consoles seem to always be. There's going to be a percentage that fail. But just be careful what you see online, because there are going to be some people that are putting some weird stuff out there. In regards to the first game I'm going to play on my PS5, I think it's going to be Spider-Man Miles Morales. I originally was going to do Demon Souls first because I thought that game just visually looked like the most impressive game I've seen for the next-gen consoles. And I really like the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne. But the more I've seen on Miles Morales, I loved Spider-Man PS4. And Miles Morales just looks really, really, really good. So I think that's going to be my first one. I think I'm going to load up Spidey first. Now that is, like I said, tomorrow. I don't have a PS5 today. Mine's still shipping. It's still in the mail. Right now it's supposed to be here tomorrow. I'll be pretty bummed if it misses tomorrow, but that's what it's saying. Thank you for the super chat, Plastic Hearts. Timur72299 with a super chat saying keep up the great work. Thank you, Timur. Thank you for being a part of literally, it seems like every single live chat, always dropping the super chats. You keep up the great work on Twitter too, Timur. Always uncovering some awesome, interesting stuff. I saw you passed 1,500 followers recently. Congrats on that. You absolutely deserve it, Timur. Micah Hendricks here with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Micah. Hey, Benji, dad-related question. Oh, this is fun. This is fun. Don't worry, everyone who aren't dads, who aren't parents. I won't take a super long time on this one, but I am one, so I really appreciate this question. I've got 3 kids who all enjoy gaming. Which game will you first introduce to your daughter when the time comes? Well, I have a 2-year-old right now. I'll tell you, Micah, it's pretty crazy how fast kids figure this stuff out. She's already playing a bunch of games on tablet. It is crazy how fast kids pick this stuff up. Now, they're just like little kid games. She has like a little Amazon Fire tablet, and she figured it out on her own. Like, we didn't even show her any games. She just figured it out. So she's already playing some games right now, but obviously like something like a controller is still too advanced for her. But the first games I'm going to introduce her to, once she can like start playing like console games, the kind of stuff that, many of us play, it's going to be Nintendo for sure. It's going to be, Mario. It's going to be Mario Kart. It's going to be Donkey Kong, these types of games. That's going to be the very first stuff I get her on. She's only 2 now. She can't quite figure out what's going on there. But I would say in the next couple years, I'm definitely going to be doing a whole bunch of Switch games with her. So that's going to be what I kick her off with. And I can't wait. I can't wait to have a little co-op, buddy. Thank you for the super chat, Micah. Ralph Muster here with a $10 or 10 CHF, super chat. Thank you so much, Ralph. Thank you for always being so supportive. I think you were the one that dropped the huge, if I'm remembering right, the huge super chat last chat. Thank you so much, Ralph. It's incredibly generous. Thank you for the support. What can you say about Assassin's Creed retail performance? We know it did twice as well as Odyssey overall, but what about the digital retail split? So, Ralph, I can't go super in-depth onto this yet. just because I have been super busy. I've had a ton going on, so I haven't reached out to all of the retail people that I usually speak to. I usually have contacts at several retailers that I reach out to, that I find out a lot of this stuff. That's how I do a lot of my predictions and things like this, is I have some pretty darn good contacts in the retail side of things from being in retail for so long. But Ralph, I don't have a ton of that info right now. Like I said, I've had a whole bunch going on, getting the consoles, getting them set up, getting all of that going. But there's a little bit I can't speak to. So Assassin's Creed is clearly tracking like a monster. In regards to exactly the retail digital split, I am inclined to currently believe that it is going to skew very heavy digital. So when the UK numbers come out, which, is going to happen here in the next couple days, who knows where it's going to land, right? I don't know for certain that retail will be higher than Odyssey, but I would caution people, don't make some crazy, what's the word I'm looking for? Some crazy decisions, I guess is what I would say, based on what you see at retail. Now, it might open higher than Odyssey and Origins. I won't be surprised actually about that, because it is releasing, across multiple systems. It's going to be on Xbox One, it's going to be on Series X, it's going to be on PS4, it's going to be on PS5. So you have so many things there. Assassin's Creed, I think, has really proven that it is like the next gen launch game for multi-platform, right? It's for day one. Okay. Of course, we have a Call of Duty coming out on Friday. Call of Duty is going to be absolutely enormous. It will be bigger than Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but it wasn't their day one on Xbox, and it's not technically their day one on PlayStation, even though it's so close it almost might as well be. But in regards to just across all consoles, it definitely seems like Assassin's Creed really has become that game that you get with your new system on day one, not counting exclusives, right? And if you remember, everyone that was in like one of my previous chats, I had mentioned that when the Cyberpunk delay happened, I bet Ubisoft was through the roof excited. I'm sure that they were so happy. I had mentioned that. And I think this kind of proves what I was talking about, right? Clearly, Assassin's Creed would have done well no matter what, whether Cyberpunk was there or not. But by Cyberpunk moving, it really just opened up, especially on the Xbox side. Like, here's the interesting thing here. My question is Assassin's Creed Valhalla going to be one of those rare games that sells actually more on Xbox than PlayStation? And part of the reason I'm wondering that is because with PlayStation, you have so many games that are coming out, right? You have Sackboy, you have Miles Morales, you have, of course, Assassin's Creed, you have Call of Duty tomorrow, you've got Godfall, you've got Demon's Souls. Like, there's so many games day one on PlayStation 5 or within that first day or two. Whereas Xbox, as we know, was a little bit slimmer, right? They didn't have those big exclusive games there. So Valhalla, even on Xbox particularly, has less competition. So that will be very interesting to watch. In the US in particular, I could see a scenario where Valhalla actually sells more on Xbox than PlayStation, which, like I said, is kind of a rare thing. Usually PlayStation sells more copies of games than Xbox, just because the install base is way bigger. And globally, I could still see Valhalla selling more on PlayStation just because they have that giant install base. But that will be something interesting to keep your eye on, is if in the US in particular it sells more on Xbox. Not impossible, but yeah, looking like a massive launch there for Assassin's Creed. Thank you for the super chat, Ralph. All right, super chats are cleared for now. Let me start hitting some free questions, everyone. Patrick Bitar here. Wording was very deliberate. Xbox One launched in 13 countries, while Series X is a worldwide launch. If it didn't outsell it, it would have been a big fail. Yes, Patrick, I agree with that. So let me read you the exact statement from Phil really quick. This is in regards to the largest Xbox launch. So I want to bring that up because I'm seeing people kind of getting disagreements about what it means. Let's really quick read exactly what Phil said and then form our opinions on that. So let me really quick. Phil Spencer tweets this last night. Thank you for supporting the largest launch in Xbox history. In 24 hours, more new consoles sold, comma, in more countries, comma, than ever before. We're working with retail to resupply as quickly as possible. You continue to show us the connective power of play is more important than ever. Y'all, that to me reads definitely sales, that they sold more consoles than ever before. Now, the previous record holder on this is Xbox One. A lot of people don't realize that. They think it was the Xbox 360, just because lifetime the 360 was so much more successful of a console than the Xbox One was. But in reality, no, Xbox One out of the gate was a huge success. It did over 1 million consoles sold in only 24 hours. The problem for Xbox started to show itself in the springtime. But the actual Xbox One launch, that holiday period, was a huge success. They were selling a ton of consoles day one, and that's not too surprising, right? Because as we mentioned, the 360 had so much momentum. It's the best selling of any hardware that Microsoft has ever released, right? None of their other Xbox efforts have sold more than the 360. In the US in particular, it was a juggernaut. I mean, in the US, the 360 was absolutely insane. It sold way more units, for example, than the PS3 did in the US. It was just a complete success there. So at launch, Xbox One did really, really good. Problem is, as soon as you hit that springtime, it kind of fell off a cliff. A lot of reasons for that, right? First of all, the price was much higher than the competition on PS4. There was a $100 price difference there. Second of all, there was the whole bundled Connect thing. PlayStation 4 at the time was the more powerful console, so you were getting more power at a cheaper price. And Microsoft's messaging and marketing was just all over the place. So it makes sense, right? That, yeah, out the gate, Xbox One did good. Then it fell off a cliff. But with this comment here, I think the key point is he mentions in 24 hours more new consoles sold. He's saying that there are more consoles sold in that 24-hour period than before. And why is it important? Because they gave us PR on the Xbox One. They specifically gave it for the first 24 hours, which Phil's mentioning here, 24 hours. He's comparing it, at least in my interpretation. You can disagree with this because he does not give a number. So if you want to disagree and say, oh, he's just talking about the scale of the launch, that's totally up to you. But in my reading of this, he is saying that they sold more consoles than the Xbox One, which did 1 million in 24 hours. I don't think that's actually shocking, right? Microsoft has had a lot of momentum in the last couple months with a lot of their Game Pass announcements, with a lot of their studio acquisitions. As you mentioned, Patrick, they're launching in way more countries than the original Xbox One did. Xbox One had a very staggered launch. In fact, it didn't hit some markets until way later than they did in like the US. It wasn't like, a week later. We're talking months and months later for some markets. So it makes sense to me. They launched in way more markets. They have a cheaper option at launch. They have the Series S, which is only $299. I can tell you at retail, the little bit that I have seen, it's just a complete sellout. So Microsoft, at least in the US, I don't have as much visibility over in Europe and Japan and things like this. So I can't comment on that, but at least in the US, they literally have sold everything they shipped for launch. Just every single console, boom, gone. So it's selling less than Xbox One at launch would have actually been surprising to me. It would have actually been a really bad sign, I think, considering how much bigger the markets they launched in are. All right, we had 2 super chats drop. Let me hit these 2 super chats really quick. Thank you so much for the super chats. Nico Dem here with a €10 super chat. I believe that is €10 or £10. I'm bad at reading the different currencies on here, so I'm so sorry. Hey Benji, should I buy Miles Morales for PS4 now or wait for me to get a PS5? A retailer here seems to offer a third pre-order wave next week, so delivery maybe sometime this year. Nico, here's what I'll say. I watched the Digital Foundry on this, and they didn't, I believe at the time, fully have the PS4 code. If I'm remembering wrong, I apologize, but I'm assuming it's going to run pretty great on PlayStation 4. Spider-Man, just the original Spider-Man was amazing on PlayStation 4, ran great. So I would say it's not necessarily a bad call to buy it on PS4 if you think it's going to be a while before you get a PS5. Like for anyone that's like, hey, I'm not going to buy a PS5 in the next 3 to 6 months. I totally get buying it on PS4. I think it's going to be a fantastic game on that system as well. What I would say, Nico, though, is if you think you can get a PS5 this year, I might wait because you just have way more options on the PS5 version, right? You can run it at 60 FPS if that's what you want. If you want that really high frame rate, it has that option there. It also has the ray tracing and all the bells and whistles options, which goes down to 30 FPS. But you just get like a lot more to the game, like options and increased fidelity on PS5. But what like I mentioned before, if you think it might be a while, you're not really, the core game is going to be the same either way. It's not like the PS5 version just has completely different content. It's just significantly different than the PS4 version. It's really going to be just, it looks better, runs better, things like this. Your save will transfer as well. I believe, though, they said that's not going to come until an update. I don't think it's necessarily day one. But if you buy it for PS4 and play it a little bit, you will be able to transfer that save file to PS5. So not the end of the world either way. I think it's going to be fantastic on both. JCat here with the 10 super chat. Thank you, JCat. Thank you for being so positive. Thank you for being in every single one of these chats, basically. In a recent interview, Phil Spencer denied the Bloomberg report that Microsoft are trying to acquire a Japanese studio. That report also said that Microsoft could make Japan their second biggest region. Okay, so a couple things to pull out here, JCat, actually. On one hand, I think Phil was kind of lying, to be honest with you. And when I say lying, I don't mean that in a malicious way. I think it was PR speak, because he also came out in an interview literally right after that and talked about how they're still trying to buy teams. So I think when Phil says he's denying that, what I think he means is that it's not like one of those things where they feel like they have to get a Japanese studio, like just their targets are set, all Japan, like we must get a Japanese team. I think Microsoft is still going to buy a lot of studios. I've talked about that before, y'all. Bethesda was not the end. With how upfront Phil and Satya are about buying teams, I mean, it's not like subtle. They're just like flat out like, yes, we're buying more. We're looking. We are trying to buy people. That means they're just trying to find the right fits, things that they think, are a good fit, things they think will be successful. Trust me, if a Japanese team is available and they think it's a good fit, they're going to buy them. But what I think Phil is more saying is that the idea that Microsoft just has this locked in idea, we must get a Japanese team. That is all our focus. I think he's basically denying it in that regard. Like, hey, Japan's not our primary focus. It's more just about getting teams that make sense for us. But yes, that idea that Japan is going to be their second biggest region, there's just no way. I don't understand that report on that side of it at all. It's just never going to happen, I don't think. Now, maybe we come back to me saying this right now in a couple years and it looks hilarious. You have to always factor in surprises, right? Especially in the video game industry, which is crazy volatile. We see things that shock us all of the time. But if I was to bet Microsoft becoming this huge presence in Japan is very low on the things I would expect. US is number one market for Microsoft always. It's their biggest, and of course the report said second biggest region. There's no chance anywhere is going to take over US for Microsoft. However, they're also very strong in the UK. They have been ever since the 360 generation, and even with the Xbox One, they had a lot of success in the UK. Now, it wasn't as big of a success as the 360 was in the UK. PlayStation 4, did outsell it in the UK, but they also had a lot of success there. Microsoft has a lot of success in Mexico over various generations. Gears of War in particular is extremely popular in Mexico. So that's been a good market for them. There are other ones. I'd be shocked if Japan ever hit number 2, right? However, I will say something. I think they can see improvements there. And when I say improvements, keep in mind, the Xbox One was a complete failure there. So it doesn't take much, right? The Xbox One lifetime has barely sold anything in Japan. Like, it is very, very low. So to improve off of that, I'm not going to say it's not difficult, because it's a market they just have no headway in. So it is difficult. It's an uphill climb, but it's not one of these things like, hey, they're already selling millions of consoles there. So to improve, it's going to take this huge effort. They just have to do, a million consoles and it would be amazing. So I can see them finding more success there, especially, if we get a bunch of Japanese games hitting Game Pass regularly. Things like this, with the Series S being a cheaper console, I could see them doing better there. But the idea it'll be their second biggest region, I just could never see that. I mean, even being like a big market for them would be shocking to me. Super chat here from Benji's Tank Top. Thank you so much. Thank you for the super chat. Best username out there. Let me get a drink of my cold brew coffee really quick. Thoughts on Take-Two buying Codemasters? Yes. In South Korea, Game Pass on mobile has blown up. Ooh, interesting. I'm going to follow that up here in just a second. And is being used by more people than on PC and console. Interesting, Phil. Do you see this trend continuing in some other countries? Very fascinating question here, Benji's Tank Top. Thank you so much. So a couple things. Take-Two buying Codemasters isn't shocking to me, because as I've mentioned on these chats, right, we have been talking about this here on this channel and on my Twitter, for months, that I have been openly saying consolidation of the gaming industry is currently in effect and it will continue. It is not going to stop. Now, I also don't think that everyone needs to up and panic that there's going to be no independent studios, that it's all going to come down to 3 companies or 4 companies owning everyone. I wouldn't go that far, but I have been telling people now for months that the whole industry is in a consolidation phase right now, because it is. That is 100% what is happening. Whether that's going to be Microsoft buying teams, they've already bought a ton. Whether that's Take-Two, whether that's EA, whether that's Sony, whether that's Activision, because there's a big, big reason for that. A lot of the big publishers have realized they need more releases, and Take-Two even particularly flat out says that whenever they were asked about acquiring Codemaster. They said they needed more variety in their lineup, they needed more games in their lineup. EA has, not even that long ago talked about how they need more releases. Activision have said they need more releases. Here's the thing, right? Whenever you depend on just 4, giant tent poles, if one of those miss, you're in big, big trouble. Like, you're in big trouble, right? You can take massive, massive hit on your outlook if just one of your 3 big tent poles miss, if that's all you're relying on. A healthy publisher, a healthy company, whatever, you're gonna have a variety of releases, because you have the big giant tent poles. Those are not going anywhere, but game development is ultra expensive. You need some of those indies. You need some of those more mid-ranges. You need games just hitting more regularly. Look at how Outer Worlds did for them, right? Now, that was published under the Private Division label, but part of the reason the Private Division label even exists was, again, to give them more AA-type releases. That is really where the industry's headed right now. It's all about content. It's about variety. Gaming is blowing up right now. It's always been blowing up, but right now it's really blowing up, and there's a lot of money to be made in this space. So you're going to just keep seeing consolidation. Not shocked at all about Codemasters. You're going to see more. You're going to see companies saying they're getting bought in the next 3-6 months probably, right? This isn't leaks. This is saying I'm not going to be shocked at all to see this. You're just going to see more. It's going to keep happening. There will still be independent teams. Don't panic about that, but there will be more. All right, and then in regards to your comment about Game Pass on mobile, that doesn't shock me, right? Phil had mentioned, and this is a little bit different. This is me talking about xCloud, but Phil had mentioned one of the areas they were seeing the most demand for xCloud. One of their biggest markets was in Asia, right? That's what I was talking about whenever I said, I could see Japan, and that's different. It's a different market than what you're saying here in South Korea, but I won't be surprised at all to see Microsoft make inroads in Asia. I think in particular, console sales, not so much. That's going to be a challenge going out and buying a console, but xCloud, Game Pass, I mean, this is excellent, excellent value. I do see Asia continuing to do better for them, especially like you said, in like the mobile, in the streaming space. And that's one thing I've commented on. Game Pass is just going to keep accelerating in growth. Like, it's going to accelerate, y'all. It already was this year. They're going to be at, I believe, I've been making this prediction, 20 million Game Pass subs by the end of the year. I absolutely expect that. They were already, at 15 a while ago. They're going to hit 20. I think I'd be surprised if they missed 20 million. And that's just the beginning. 20 million is just the beginning. They're going to hit higher and higher and higher Game Pass numbers. The value of that service is actually unreal. It's insane. And now you have all of EA Play on there. I mean, it's crazy. Case by case basis with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, case by case basis. I think the key to Microsoft's success now is very simple. Making the wider general audience fully aware of Game Pass. Yes. It's the biggest ace in the industry. Yes. Case by case. Keep in mind, let's go back to that big Xbox showcase that happened, right? Their next gen showcase that happened. They talked almost more about Game Pass there than they talked about Xbox Series X and S. They were constantly mentioning Game Pass. Constantly. Every single time you see PR from Microsoft, they are mentioning Game Pass because, yes, that is the future of their business. That doesn't mean that Microsoft is abandoning consoles. Not by any means. I think you're going to see Microsoft make consoles still for, potentially decades, right? Because we have these consoles on the market now. They're going to be here for the next, 5 to 6 years, probably 6. I'd be surprised if it's only a 5-year generation, but either way, it's going to be there for a while. They're definitely going to release another console after this. So, Microsoft's going to be making consoles still for a very long time. But Microsoft saw an opportunity for their business to be more than just console. I think that was a big learning lesson from the Xbox One. They had all this success with the 360. 360 did outstanding for them, right? Then all it took was one mistake, one error in their marketing strategy and their business strategy into a console gen, and all of that collapsed. Now they've rebuilt, they're on the right trajectory again, but you saw the highs from the 360 just completely collapse with Xbox One. And I think Microsoft took a very strong learning lesson from that you can't just depend on just the console business, at least for them. There's still other people that right now can, Nintendo in particular, and also PlayStation, because they are just such a juggernaut in the industry. And even PlayStation's starting to diversify, right? We're seeing them do some efforts on PC. You have PlayStation Now, which is streaming, which we don't know exactly where that's going to go in the future. Who knows? Maybe eventually there will be some sort of PS Now on mobile, like how Microsoft has Game Pass or things like this. We don't know, right? We don't know Sony's future plans there. But even Sony is kind of dabbling outside of just consoles. Microsoft sees that Game Pass is their future. That's their way to bring games to as many people as possible, to where if you don't even own an Xbox, you are still part of Microsoft's ecosystem. If that's mobile, if that's PC, if that's console, wherever, that's all revenue that's coming back to Microsoft, and it's not just dependent on them convincing you to go buy a $300 or $500 console. So yeah, case by case, that is the future of their business, 100%, and I completely agree. All right, super chats are cleared for now. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for all the super chats. Let's get back to some free questions. Ronan here. Benji, what is play acquisition? I remember one of your tweets, you talked about EA and FIFA player acquisition, but I didn't understand. What does it mean? Have fun with next gen. Thank you so much, Ronan. So player acquisition is actually one of those weird terms that actually not a whole lot of people use, but some people do, particularly like you said, EA with FIFA. I believe, and I could be mistaken here, and I apologize if I am, but what I believe that means is basically just them talking about player numbers. And whenever they're saying acquisition, they're talking about acquiring, how many players they've acquired for that game. I know it's a weird way of phrasing it, but I believe that was what they meant by that. I don't think they meant anything in regards to like specific sales data or anything like that. I believe what EA was referring to specifically was that they have acquired, gained that many players for FIFA. You don't see most people use this, right? Microsoft and stuff just says total players. Almost everyone, right? Ubisoft just came out with a PR and they said double the players. So EA could have meant something a little weird with that I am honestly miscommunicating here, but at least as far as I understand it, that is what they meant. Costas here with an interesting question. Thank you, Costas, so much for jumping in. Hi, Benji. Since we know the God of War franchise is at 51 million, God of War 2018 should be at 17 million to 19 million. I did the math. Hopefully it's right. Do you think it will reach 20 million? Yes, Costas. So this is something that is a bit flying under the radar because we didn't technically get a number for God of War 2018. We got a franchise number, but I think you're probably right on that math. It's probably very close to 20 million now for God of War. It will hit 20 million. Abso-freaking-lutely. That game was a colossal success for Sony. We know it's going to run at 60 FPS on PlayStation 5. You're going to just keep seeing, people buy in to PS5, and maybe they didn't buy that game. And they're going to buy it now because there are going to be people that bought PS5s that never bought a PS4. I know that might sound weird, right? That might sound surprising. But one thing people a lot of times don't take into perspective whenever they talk about a new generation is that also means younger people who are not in a position to buy a console that will be this coming generation. That's how, a lot of times I see people be like, how does Grand Theft Auto 5 keep selling? Hasn't everyone bought it? Well, because every single day there is a new generation of kids or teenagers or whatever that are becoming old enough to buy Grand Theft Auto 5 that were too young to play it before. You're going to get the exact same thing on PS5. There's going to be people that were, 10 years old when PlayStation 4 was around that in the next couple years are going to be 15, 16 years old, and they will be buying a PS5 and may not have had a PlayStation 4. So you're going to keep seeing legs on that. God of War has basically been an evergreen for Sony, and it's going to continue to be. Absolutely. That game ain't going to stop selling. The hype with Ragnarok, you're going to see a boost. We saw that with The Last of Us. Right before The Last of Us Part 2 came out on all of the PlayStation charts, The Last of Us 1, The Last of Us Remastered, shot up on sales charts from people buying that game that didn't before, that were hyped about The Last of Us Part 2, and they wanted to play it before Part 2 got here. You're going to see the exact same thing with God of War. So yeah, huge success. Ragnarok coming soon is just going to boost that. Knowing that God of War now plays at 60 FPS on PS5 is just going to boost that. Yeah, God of War on fire. It's one of my favorite games of this generation and doing amazing. Benji's Tank Top here with a question. What's up, Benji? The initiative again on a hiring spree, and majority of the new hires are from Naughty Dog again. Damn excited to see what they're working on. Also, don't vape in your Series X. Yes, another Series X vape comment. Yeah, the initiative's clearly gearing up for something big. I still personally hope that game is not Perfect Dark. I know. Y'all are going to be, the big Perfect Dark fans are going to be really mad at me. There's a lot of evidence it is Perfect Dark, including Jeff Grubb saying it's Perfect Dark, who is super reliable. Big fan of Jeff Grubb. I just have no history with that franchise. So if it is Perfect Dark, man, I hope this is different. I hope it is like a complete reboot, completely different than old school Perfect Dark. And again, maybe Perfect Dark fans will be angry with me about that. But I was really hoping the initiative was making a brand new IP, not a reboot, just a completely new IP. But it clearly, one thing we do know just from their hiring is that whatever the initiative is doing is very story focused. If you look at like tons of their hires, most of the people they've hired have worked on linear, story-based, many of them third-person games. Like, they have hired a lot of people from Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Crystal Dynamics, I believe they hired some people from. I mean, I could go on and on. I'm not going to list every single studio, but yeah, a lot of the people they've hired are from those types of companies that make these story, linear, the quote, quote, Sony type games. So whatever it is, I do think it's going to be in that mold. Even if it is Perfect Dark, I think it's going to be more of that story-heavy type experience. I'm sure gameplay is a huge factor, folks. I'm not saying that gameplay is not going to be a big deal. But yeah, Benji's Tank Top, they're definitely working towards that kind of game. Just looking at their hiring, right? They're not hiring the kind of people that are... we work on Overwatch, like just multiplayer, or, we just work on the multiplayer component of Battlefield, or we just work on the multiplayer component of Call of Duty, right? These aren't the types of people they're hiring. I won't be surprised if the Initiatives game has some form of multiplayer, but a lot of them do have that strong single player focus, so for sure. Super chat just dropped. Let me hit that super chat really quick. Case by case basis with a second super chat. Thank you so much, case by case basis. $5 super chat here. Strange last thought. Does strong Series X and S sales help solidify Microsoft's resolve in keeping Bethesda games exclusive, or have no impact? Thoughts? Yeah, this is the biggest question in the room right now, right? What is going on with Bethesda? We still don't know. We still won't know, I don't think, until we get an official Starfield reveal. I think that's going to tell a lot case by case basis. When we see Starfield, that's going to answer, I think, basically everything. If Starfield is a multi-platform game, whenever that gets fully revealed, which I'm guessing is going to be next year. I don't know for sure if it's going to launch next year. I think there's a chance, but I definitely think it's going to get revealed next year. Like a full-scale reveal. We're going to know what Starfield is in 2021, whether it releases then or not. Because they've been in development for a long time on this game. This game has gotten a lot of development. So if that game is multi-platform, all the big ones are going to be multi-platform, in my opinion. Fallout's going to be multi-plat. Elder Scrolls is going to be multi-plat. Essentially, everything's going to be multi-plat. Because I don't see why you would take Starfield, which is honestly a bit of an unknown. Like, if anything, if you were Microsoft and your thoughts were some games are going to be multi-plat from Bethesda and some are going to be exclusive, for me, like, Starfield would absolutely be one of the exclusive ones, because you just don't know how that's going to perform. So it's actually like a little bit safer making it an exclusive, because not as much is riding on it as like the Elder Scrolls 6, which, don't get me wrong, there's a lot riding on Starfield, especially for Bethesda's pedigree, because they've had some big misses lately, and it's been so long since Fallout 4 that like we haven't had that big giant single player Bethesda open world game for some time. So especially in terms of like faith in the studio, there's a lot riding on it. But make no mistake, like basically no matter what, I could never see Starfield selling more than the Elder Scrolls 6, because Skyrim is the best selling single player RPG of all time. So if you're Microsoft and you're picking and choosing, Starfield to me just makes way more sense to be exclusive than Elder Scrolls. For me personally, I think they all should be. If you're going to spend $7.5 billion, I don't know why you do that to put games on other platforms, except for something like Minecraft, which was an already released game, already multi-platform, targets like a really broad demo with kids and things like that. But if you're spending $7.5 billion just to put Elder Scrolls on other platforms anyways, I don't know. It's just a weird choice for me. So yeah, if Starfield's exclusive, I think it definitely is like, yeah, we could potentially be seeing Fallout and Elder Scrolls exclusive. But if Starfield comes out, that game's on PS5, that game's on Xbox, that game's all over the place, I think Elder Scrolls and Fallout are going to be too. So that game in particular is going to say a lot. In regards to does the sales justify it, I don't think so, because we're so early. I expected everything to sell out anyways, and I'm sure Microsoft did as well, right? Launch window, you're getting those really hardcore gamers, those people that are super invested in the brands. Those are the people that are going out day one and buying consoles, right? It's not so much like your casual gamers. I'm sure there's a few in there, but the vast bulk of people buying consoles right now are super hardcore gamers. The more tail of the tape for Xbox is going to be, how are things doing in March? How are consoles selling in April? How are consoles selling in May, right? That is going to be more of the proof than what we see at launch, because I expected this anyways. Timmer with a super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. That's your second one, I think, of the chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. Let me grab a drink of coffee really quick. According to one of Sony's current employee LinkedIn's, yeah, I saw this. This one got a lot of attention for you, Timmer. Good job. The PC PlayStation business is worth $50 million. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, I have mentioned before, I think you're definitely going to see more Sony games hit Steam, hit PC. It just makes sense. I don't think you're going to see their brand newest games on PC soon, right? So if you're a big PlayStation fan and you feel like the value gets diluted if they're on PC, I wouldn't panic about that. I don't think you're going to see like, Horizon Forbidden West hit PC within 3 months of launch or 6 months of launch. That sort of thing. I don't think so at all, because I think Sony still really believes in their console business and in that exclusive sell consoles. But what I mean, we just talked about God of War, right? How many consoles is God of War selling right now? I mean, I would venture to say almost zero. Now, not Ragnarok, right? Ragnarok is going to move a freaking ton of consoles. But God of War has been out for years now, and it is now on a last-gen console. It's not selling a bunch of PS5s. There's not a lot of people that completely skipped PS4 and are now like, you know what? I'm going to go buy a PlayStation 5 for that PS4 God of War game, right? Just doesn't make any sense. So those games, those PS4 games that have been out for a while, that aren't moving hardware, God of War, I don't know about the original Spider-Man or not, but games like this, I could easily see continuing to hit PC. It just makes sense. It's not going to hurt the PlayStation brand. It's just going to give them, excess sales for those games. And then more importantly, you may have someone that played Horizon Zero Dawn on Steam, freaking loved it, and now they're like, dude, I want to get Forbidden West, and I don't want to wait 2 or 3 years like I had to on PC. I'm going to go buy a PS5. There is probably a very real amount of people that have experienced this sort of thing, so it also gets their brands more attention. So yeah, Timmer, I definitely think you're going to see more hit PC. It just makes sense. I just don't think it's going to be the latest and greatest releases. It's going to be more, give games 2-3 years and then they'll show up on PC. That's kind of the direction I think Sony's going. The one wild card I would say in that is like a multiplayer game as a service type title. If they have something like that in the works, I could see that being on PC very quickly, because then it just gives you a bigger pool of multiplayer. You know what I mean? But like those big single player epics, those aren't going to be on PC super fast. And then Timur with one more super chat after that, saying, per JCat, hit the like button. Thank you so much, Timur. Yes, I would appreciate it if you guys hit the like. I definitely appreciate that. I don't spam out requests for likes, so I would appreciate it. There's been a increase in dislikes on a couple of my videos lately. I suspect that is intentional, because the way they've been coming in, they've all been coming in at once, all of a sudden a bunch of dislikes. So I think someone might be targeting the channel, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. In fact, if anything, I don't know if they realize it, but those dislikes help out too, because YouTube actually does not count likes and dislikes as separate for engagement. It's all engagement. So for those people that are hitting dislike, you're just helping my videos get attention. So, but I would appreciate the likes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Timur. And there's still way more likes than dislikes, right? The vast majority of people are amazing and awesome. It's just something I noticed. I only brought it up because someone actually even commented on the last live chat. They were like, what's up with the dislikes? Because they were way higher than normal. Ralph Muster with another super chat. Thank you so much, Ralph. Thank you so much. The DS sold around 12 million worldwide during Q4 on 2 occasions. Could the Switch repeat or top this feat this year? I think it can. Ralph, me too. Me too. Look at how Switch has been selling this year, right? Switch has been just... Here, we've all been so focused on next gen that we've kind of forgot, like, I would say not us hardcore salespeople, but I would say I don't think Switch is getting the mainstream type attention for how crazy its sales are that it deserves. I mean, it's been absolutely phenomenal how well the Switch has been selling. We're talking a record-setting pace, and I think their new forecast, Ralph, I mentioned this in the last chat, I still think it's conservative. I think they're going to sell even more than that forecast, and they just increased it by millions. I think they're going to sell even more. Ralph, as long as they have the inventory, as long as they can just flat out produce enough Switches, this holiday should be gargantuan for Switch. Yes, we have new consoles on the market, PlayStation 5, Series X, very expensive consoles, but as we've seen with the Switch's data, Switch is a very big companion console, right? A ton of people that buy Switches already have Xbox Ones, already have PlayStation 4s. We see a very high cross-buy ratio of those. Of course, there's also a gigantic segment of Nintendo fans that are just like hardcore Nintendo fans, but it also makes a fantastic companion console. So I don't think that the next-gen console launches are going to hurt Switch sales at all. Switch really differentiates itself in lineup than PlayStation and Xbox, right? I mean, if you want Mario, you buy a Switch. You ain't getting Mario anywhere else. If you want Zelda, you're buying a Switch. You're not getting it anywhere else. You want Animal Crossing? You see what I'm saying? So, like, Nintendo has its own intrinsic value. And, yeah, Ralph, I agree. As long as they can produce enough consoles, I expect, yes, the Switch to just shatter records this holiday, completely shatter them. I mean, it's on a pace, too, for sure. KH here with the 5 super chat. Thank you so much, K. Thank you for being so positive on all my chats and being in so many of them. I really appreciate it. Wow, PS5 could sell less first week in Japan than Switch next week in Japan. Least attractive market for Sony. Also, Ring Fit Adventure worldwide sold more than Final Fantasy Remake now. Dang, thoughts? Yeah, so a couple actually very interesting points here, KH. We've been talking on this chat about how Japan wasn't looking great for Sony, right? We had mentioned this before, back before Final Fantasy 16 was even announced. And we had been talking about how lineup-wise, there just wasn't like a ton there that looked like it really spoke to the Japanese market, you know, in terms of announced games. The biggest one you could kind of look at launch would have been like a Demon Souls, and even then, while the Souls games do well in Japan, it's not one of these things like a Dragon Quest or a Monster Hunter or even a Final Fantasy or a Persona, right? We didn't have these like really huge Japanese market games there announced for the PlayStation lineup. I do think it's important they announced Final Fantasy 16 and that it is an exclusive. I think that while Final Fantasy isn't at its peak in Japan, it is still very big, right? It's still a franchise that can sell 1 million units in Japan. It's still very, very much worthwhile to that Japanese market. But more importantly, Final Fantasy 16, as of now, has no announced date. So it's not one of those things where even if you're a big Final Fantasy fan in Japan, you feel like I have to rush out day one and get a PlayStation, you know, because Final Fantasy 16 is coming out in the first couple months, right? It still could be a year away. So you still have lots of time if you're in Japan and you're a Final Fantasy fan to just buy one later. So yeah, K, it just doesn't appear, at least as of now, that Japan is going to be that big of a launch for PlayStation or anytime soon. I think there is potential for that to increase, obviously, as games like Final Fantasy 16 release, as Monster Hunter World 2, whenever that comes out. You know, it's still probably a couple years away, but I expect that will sell units. Persona 6, who knows? But again, notice something? That's the problem. Most of the games we're mentioning that are really big in that Japanese market either aren't announced at all, or who knows when they'll be here. So that is an issue. Yeah, it is an issue. Fortunately for Sony, outside of Japan, they're on fire. They have so many games that appeal globally. And I think Sony's internal thinking is that is the bigger focus for them than courting Japanese, support in particular. I don't think they're abandoning Japanese support, but I think if you're Sony and you're kind of gauging, you need to focus. Are we going to 100% focus on getting that Japanese, launch early support, or games that appeal to a global market? You're focusing a little more on global. But yeah, not looking like a super strong, at least I would say first 6 months for PS5 in Japan. I would agree with that. And in terms of Ring Fit Adventure, it's crazy. I mean, that game has had insane legs, right? Ring Fit Adventure is one of those products that's just like only Nintendo. You can't envision current Sony or current Microsoft coming up with something like that, right? We've seen them make experiments in that sort of market. We had Microsoft do like Connect Sports and things like that. We have seen Sony do some fitness stuff, but what I mean is like, to come up with a random, completely out there product like Ring Fit Adventure is, and then also have it be a gigantic success. I think that's one thing that Nintendo fans love about Nintendo is they'll just come out and do random crazy stuff you don't expect. And sometimes that hits huge and sometimes it misses, right? We've seen like with Labo, where that was something totally different. And to be honest, Labo bombed. Like it did not do well. So it's a bit of a roll of the dice for them, but that is one thing you can respect about Nintendo is they're not afraid of just coming up with completely out there concepts like an RPG fitness game and putting it on the market. So yeah, amazing results. All right, super chats are cleared for now, everyone. Thank you for all those super chats. It's amazing of you. We're still going to go for about a half hour. These streams usually are an hour and a half. We're right at an hour now, so I still got time to hit a lot of questions. Don't worry, everyone. Thank you for making this another big chat. My favorite thing I do is these live chats. Kostas here. Do you think Assassin's Creed Valhalla will beat Assassin's Creed 3 Lifetime? This is an interesting question. Also, last Morales prediction before we see the numbers. Fun. Okay, this is fun, Kostas. So, two thoughts. In terms of will Valhalla beat Assassin's Creed 3 Lifetime, that is tough. I was actually literally just having a conversation with a couple of really knowledgeable salespeople that I respect that are super active in the community. I won't say their names here because I don't know if they want that publicly out there or not. But we were literally just having this conversation even before the Valhalla data dropped, right? And when I say data, I mean the double players at launch than Odyssey. We didn't even have that data out there yet. And we were debating that. We had a feeling, I've been talking on here. I thought Valhalla was going to launch huge. If you remember, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that debut trailer, was the fastest watched trailer in the entire history of Ubisoft as a company. No game they ever announced had that many views that quickly than Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I was feeling like the tracking was great for them. But now we know indeed it launched huge. But Assassin's Creed 3, people forget, man, that game sold amazing. I don't remember the exact date, but basically Assassin's Creed 3 had sold like 7.5 million copies by December when it came out, which was only, I think, a little over a month. So 7+ million units in only a little over a month is crazy, y'all. That is a blistering pace. That is crazy pace. So my guess right now, Kostas, is no. I still don't think it's going to match Valhalla or Assassin's Creed 3, but I could be wrong on that, right? Because when we just got the number of double Odyssey players, we didn't get a sales number with that, right? So it could be even ahead of where I'm envisioning it's at right now, so maybe. But I don't know. That Assassin's Creed 3 pace was unbelievable. Here's what I do feel comfortable saying, Kostas. If it doesn't beat Assassin's Creed 3, I do think we're looking at the second biggest Assassin's Creed ever. Yes. Yep. I think at least Valhalla will be the second biggest Assassin's Creed game ever. Maybe Assassin's Creed 3 is in that potential, but I don't feel locked in on that yet. But number 2, I feel pretty confident about. I think it'll at least hit number 2. If it's doing double Odyssey, I mean, that's big, y'all. That's big. Odyssey did very well for them. It was over 10 million, right? Odyssey, quite a long ways ago, we got the announcement, had sold over 10 million units. So double is crazy. Obviously, that doesn't mean it's at 20 million. The Odyssey number we got was, months and months and months and months after launch. But even at launch, to be doing double Odyssey is crazy, considering we're talking about a game that sold over 10 million units. All right, we just had 2 super chats drop. Thank you so much, everyone, for the super chats. Ralph Muster with another super chat. Holy cow, Ralph. Thank you for being so generous. I'm telling you, Ralph, this is extremely kind of you. Thank you so much. Last super chat today, I promise. How is Monster Hunter Rise trending so far in the US? Monster Hunter World did great. Does Monster Hunter Rise beneficiate from that hype? What can we expect from launch? Yeah, it's going to do way better, Ralph, than previous Nintendo Monster Hunter games have done in the US. All the tracking I'm seeing on that is pointing absolutely to that. It is going to do better than, like, things we've seen like Monster Hunter Tri and things like that did on Nintendo consoles in the US. I am not expecting Rise to do better than Monster Hunter World in the US. I do not expect that. So I wouldn't go in, even with as massive as the Switch is and how big the install base and all of that, at least as of now, the things I'm seeing don't make me think that Rise in the US will be bigger than World, but it is absolutely benefiting from the Monster Hunter brand in general growing. Absolutely. You are going to see a bigger launch than any of the previous Nintendo Monster Hunter games in the US. I feel very, very confident about that. I just wouldn't particularly expect Monster Hunter World type numbers, but very good. Yeah, Rise should do excellent for them. Very, very good. KH with a super chat. Thank you so much, K, for another super chat. If you love gaming, you love Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. I love the positivity, K. Really, really appreciate that. Everyone knows I try to be positive here on my YouTube and on Twitter. What I always say, my kind of go-to, I have no problem with people that are super big fans of one platform. I follow people like that, right? There's people that I interact with on Twitter that I think are totally awesome, that are just like a big PlayStation fan or like a big Nintendo fan. Ain't nothing wrong with that at all. My issue is whenever that turns into like being a jerk, right? That's what I don't like. What I don't like is when it becomes mean-spirited. Nothing wrong with being super positive, loving a brand. The issue is whenever that becomes a thing where you go around and kind of try to like bully other people online because of things they like. That's the kind of thing where I'm just not a fan. I like to treat people well. I like to treat people how I would like to be treated. I'm not perfect at it, y'all. I've had issues in the past where I've been a jerk. I think everyone has, right? I mean, none of us are perfect people. But what I mean is like when it becomes a consistent thing, right? If you're just always going around being jerks to people, come on. It ain't a good look. It ain't a good look. Thank you, Kay, though. I love it. I appreciate the positivity. J-Cat saying no PS5 for me. Europe has to wait one more week. I feel you, J-Cat. I feel sorry for everyone in Europe. Hey, I'm with you right now too, y'all. I don't have mine yet. I'm still going to get it before Europe. I'm still scheduled to get it on Friday, hopefully. Worst case scenario, it probably gets here on Saturday. So I will still get a little bit before it, but I feel you, everyone in Europe. I know a lot of people from Europe watch these chats and follow me on Twitter. I'm sorry. One more week. You guys, you're not too far away. You're not too far away. Don't let everyone's like hype and things they're posting hurt you too bad. It's not too long. Timmer just dropped a super chat. Holy cow, Timmer. Thank you so much for another super chat. Multiples per stream. You're incredible. Y'all, I hope I make it clear how thankful I am for these super chats. You know what I mean? I mean, sincerely. Don't ever feel obligated to do this. I never want anyone to feel pressured. So many of y'all come in, drop multiple super chats per stream. The support is crazy, all right? I'm extremely fortunate in that regard. So thank you so much, Timor. Multiple super chats. It's incredible. Given Elder Scrolls Online and Star Wars The Old Republic, each costing $200 million, do you think we will see an MMO surpassing these budgets? You know, here's the thing, Timmer. Like you mentioned, with a budget like that, MMOs are so risky because there's like no guarantee at all that you're going to get a large amount of player numbers. How many MMOs have we seen come out and just completely fail? I mean, we've seen a lot, and whenever an MMO fails, it can sink an entire company, right? We have seen that before too, where it has hurt someone so bad that either the company went out of business or it became one of those things that it took a very long time to recover from. Will we see one surpassing 200 million? This is a good question, Timmer. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say we will see some sort of MMO at some point do that, because I don't think it's one of those things where the industry is just completely going to abandon making new MMOs. Because if you do find success, it can be a huge success. Look at Final Fantasy 14, look at World of Warcraft. Honestly, Elder Scrolls Online has become a very good long-term success for them. You know, whenever Elder Scrolls Online first came out, it was one of those things that seemed pretty rocky. But I mean, that game years and years later, still getting regular expansions, still getting a ton of players. So that is always going to be appealing to any publisher, that maybe we can get in on that goodness too. So Timmer, I'm going to predict yes, but you won't see many, right? You're going to see like maybe one of these gigantic budget MMOs every 10 years, even, maybe, you know, like a true MMO. It's going to be 5 to 10 years, I would say. A very rare occurrence, not one of those that people are just going to be pumping them out. Because if you find success, yeah, the market, you can make so much money. But you're gambling. You're gambling more, I think, on an MMO than you are like a big single player game. I really think so, because it's hard to pull players from other games, right? MMOs and big multiplayer games, they're one of these things that like they really have their audience, right? It's a huge time commitment. It's a big commitment in your personal life in a lot of ways. And I think pulling people from these games to other games is a difficult ask, instead of like, hey, I'm going to play this single player game for 30 hours and be done. You know, let's say a big open world game. I'm going to play a 30 hour, 40 hour even. Let's go long. You're going to play a 40 hour game. At least, you know, I'm about 40 hours and I'm out. MMOs, most people play those that are big MMO fans for hundreds of hours. That's hard to pull those people away. And there's only so many people that are going to play an MMO. So, Timmer, yep, you will see some, but it'll be rare. It'll be just an every once in a while thing. All right, super chats are cleared. Elias Stapleton here, saying, hi, Benji. Good to see Elias, always in these chats. If Xbox Series X and S were the largest launch in Xbox history, I can't imagine how big the PS5 one will be. Yeah, I mean, the demand for PS5 Online seems pretty more times bigger than Xbox. Elias, I agree. Globally, you know, and some Xbox fans get upset at me for saying this, and I don't mean it as like a cheap shot, but globally it's not very close. I mean, it's just not on a worldwide level. PlayStation is just so much bigger in markets that Xbox isn't, right? Way bigger in mainland Europe, way bigger. Sony has made major inroads in emerging markets like the Middle East. The Middle East has become, I mean, it's of course not going to do the kind of numbers that we see in the US yet, but it has become a very strong market for them. I know I've spoken to some people that have made PlayStation exclusives, and they've talked about how Middle East has been, you know, a really good market for them. They've sold a lot of games there. Areas in Asia outside of Japan have seen a lot of growth for Sony. These are just markets that Microsoft hasn't had an established presence yet, right? That doesn't mean that they can't, right? That doesn't mean they can't improve. That doesn't mean that the Xbox Series X and Series S cannot help them grow there. But PlayStation already has such a big following in many of these markets. And while Xbox and PlayStation are super competitive in the US, they're just neck and neck. Even still, though, let's even give Microsoft an optimistic scenario. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's be optimistic and say that Microsoft takes the US market this gen. Again, y'all, I'm not predicting that right now. I'm just saying a hypothetical scenario. Even if they did that, PlayStation 5, trust me, is going to sell a freaking ton of units. And either way, I don't think the two are going to be far off in the US market, just like we saw this gen. Even for all of Microsoft's mistakes, the Xbox One really didn't sell that many less units than the PlayStation 4 in the US. I have a feeling this next gen is going to be kind of similar. Whichever sells more, they're both going to sell a lot. So my point there is, Huge in Europe for PlayStation, big in Middle East, big in, growing markets in Asia, and no matter what, it's still going to do freaking good in the US too. So globally, it's just, yeah, they have way more demand than Xbox. So I would expect a gigantic launch, Elias, huge launch globally for PlayStation, and they will outsell PlayStation. PlayStation will outsell Xbox globally, definitely at launch. Questions US. US is going to be fun to watch. That is going to be interesting. I think that's just going to come down to inventory. Sony and Microsoft are going to sell literally every single console they make this holiday in the US. Every single one. So whoever sends more to the US will sell more this holiday. Elias has one more final question. So I'm going to hit that too because other people have gotten multiple answers. So I want to give Elias one. My final question for today. Cyberpunk out of the Game of the Year 2020. Yeah. Who do you think is going to take that award? Could Sony be the first ones to take the award 2 times in a row? I'd say there's a strong chance, Elias. Yeah. Now that Cyberpunk's out of the running for the Game Awards, right? Jeff Keighley's big Game Awards. Cyberpunk's too late. We have the reviews now for the vast majority of the launch games for next gen. My thoughts, Elias, is Game of the Year is probably... Ooh, man. Wow. You can't rule out a surprise like Sekiro winning last year. I did not expect that. Did any of y'all expect that? I did not predict that Sekiro was going to win the Jeff Keighley Game Awards last year. Now, that's an amazing game. I'm not bashing Sekiro. I just would have never called that. It seemed like a little too, I don't want to say niche because it sold over 5 million units, but it just didn't feel like a Game of the Year type thing for those types of awards. So you can't rule out a surprise. But Elias, I'm feeling like it's going to go to probably Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us Part 2. That's kind of my thoughts. I think it's going to go to one of those two. I would not rule out Animal Crossing. A lot of the media loved Animal Crossing. It sold a ton of units. That might be like a surprise wild card in this race, is that Animal Crossing could sneak in there. But I think it's going to be Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us. If I had to make a prediction, I think one of those two is going to win. Yeah, I think so. All right, now that we're down to the last 20 minutes, outside of Super Chats, I'm going to try and hit questions for people that have not gotten a question in, okay? So that's what my main focus is going to be, Super Chats and people that have not gotten a question answered this chat yet. Kyle Borchert here. What's up, Benji? What is up? Congrats on launch day. Yes. Celebrate, everybody. PlayStation fans, today's an amazing day. Was able to secure mine as well. Awesome, Kyle. Do you think PS5 will have the biggest launch ever? Ooh, biggest launch ever, period. Globally? Yeah, I'm going to say yes, Kyle. Probably yes, if we're talking global, if they made enough. That's the question. These questions are tough because it all comes down to inventory. Right now, sales are more about inventory than they are demand. The demand is there. I'm telling y'all. Sony will sell every single console they make for the next several months. Every single one. So if they make enough, Kyle, if Sony has the production capacity, the demand, I would say, is there for the biggest launch ever. Yes. Demand-wise, yes. The demand is there. It's all about units. How many are they going to make? That is all it comes down to. And I'm inclined to think that they know that and are going to make enough. So I'll take a gamble and I'll say yes, Kyle. I'll say yes. Oh, Split End saying just stopping by to say hi in the chat rocks. Split End, hope you're having a great vacation. I know you're on vacation. You're chilling right now. Hope you're doing well, Split End. It's good to see you. Even if you were just stopping by, it's great to see you, Split End. Kevin Tamindo saying they picked up their PS5 30 minutes ago. Heck yeah. And then Kevin saying Xbox said the same thing about Xbox One sales on launch day, and look what happened. Exactly. That was the point. Xbox One was the record. Yeah, it was. Like, it set the record. It was the biggest launch day, bigger than Xbox 360's launch day. As you mentioned, though, it's all about how this looks in 3 or 4 months. That's the bigger question. I'm inclined to think, even with a somewhat sparse lineup early on, that Series X and S will outpace Xbox One, even over the springtime, because I think Game Pass is, ooh, that's a big draw. That's a big draw. Pierre485 saying, good to see another live chat. Good to see you, Pierre. Always posting all kinds of interesting sales stuff on Twitter. Good to see you, Pierre. Silence PP7. Good to see you, Silenced. Always in the chat. Benji, I'm playing Miles Morales right now on PS5. I'm jealous and enjoying it a lot. Chances of a Venom game at some point. Well, anyone that doesn't want spoilers for the original Spider-Man, OG Spider-Man, the very first Spider-Man PS4 game, cover your ears. Right now, I'm about to drop a spoiler. Here we go, spoiler time. Yes. Venom is going to be in the sequel, it would appear, or at least their own twist on a Venom. Venom getting a own standalone game is going to be all about how they handle the symbiotes in Spider-Man 2. At least that is way the ending of Spider-Man 1 leads you to believe, is that they're going into the whole symbiote storyline with Spider-Man 2. So as long as Venom isn't going to be like a one-off, then I would say, yeah, I could see a standalone Venom thing. Even if it's like how this Miles Morales is, like a middle-sized project. Venom's a very popular character, so I could see that. That would be fun playing as Venom. That would be like sick, actually. That would be very, very cool. All right, spoilers are over. We just had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Benji here with a 10 super chat. Thank you, Benji. Hi, Sony is planning a Switch like year one. Yes, Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo 7, Horizon 2, Returnal, Destruction All-Stars, God of War Ragnarok. Can they pull this out with COVID? How come Sony has so many games early? So a couple things here, Benji. First of all, yes, that first year PS5 lineup is insane. I mean, it is one of the best I've ever seen. The only one I think that gives it a run for its money is that Switch first year. I mean, you had Mario Odyssey, you had Breath of the Wild. Sony appears that they're going to have maybe more like amount of releases than Nintendo had. But Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and there were others too, but those two in particular, man, that's a crazy games to have early on. I mean, we're talking huge, right? Look at how many those have sold. Both of them are about to hit 20 million units sold each. I mean, whoo! Just between those two games, you're talking 40 million units. So, but that's big. I would say this is potentially right there and potentially better. We'll have to see. But yes, it is like a Switch-like opening year. I'm not shocked to see this for one reason. Remember, y'all, a lot of people were getting very frustrated with Sony towards the tail end of the PS4 generation because they were pretty silent, right? They weren't like having tons and tons of brand new announcements. You know, there was like that gap there. It's easy to forget now that we have all these games announced. But there was like a solid 12 to 18 months where the PlayStation fan base was getting a little like, come on, Sony, where's the big exciting announcements? Where's like the new games? Remember, we kept seeing stuff like Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us, like kind of over and over again for a while. That was because they had so many projects in the works for next gen, as we clearly see now, right? So much focus was getting done on making next gen games. And in the terms of the reason, like why there's so many so early, it's because, as Sony stated, they flat out said they want to see the fastest transition in history from their last gen platform to their next gen platform. In other words, they want an accelerated adoption rate between PS4 and PS5. They want people rushing out to get PS5s. Just go, 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 go. Sell, 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 sell. So many PS5s so quickly. They want to build that install base up very, very, very fast. So that's why you're having so many big exclusives targeted for their first year. In terms of can they pull it off with COVID, the only one I'm worried about missing there is God of War Ragnarok. That is the one game that I think has a shot at missing. I don't think any of the other ones do for one particular reason. They're all scheduled right now. This was confirmed by Sony in an ad. Those games are targeting the first half of the year. So to miss 2021 completely, they would have to get like huge delays, right? Those games would have to get a delay of basically over 6 months. If they're targeting the first half of the year, that means even if, well, except for Horizon. Horizon is targeting the second half, but I think that can make the second half. But in terms of like Gran Turismo, Ratchet and Clank, Returnal, these sort of games, in order to miss 2021 completely, they're going to catch a huge delay. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think Horizon is probably going to be fine making that second half because I suspect that that's probably targeted for like a September release. This is my guess right now. So even if it caught an internal delay of a couple months, it's still on track for that year. But God of War would be the one that I'm most uncertain of because I think right now the target is for that to be holiday. So if that gets delayed right now internally, I don't know this. I'm guessing, considering all we've seen is a logo. That to me says it's the furthest off of these 2021 games. That's the one to keep your eye on, Benji. That's the one that could slide. I hope it doesn't. I'm optimistic that they make holiday release, but that is the one, Benji. That is the one out of that lineup I would be the most worried about potentially catching a delay because it's probably targeting the end of the year. Highlander001. At Benji, with Sega's money problems, do you think Microsoft might acquire them? Do you think Sony has the capital to purchase Sega? All right, this is interesting actually. So we had talked about before in this chat how it's a bit difficult for companies to acquire like big Japanese publishers. It's not impossible, but basically the way Japanese law is set up, like for this sort of thing, the company to be acquired, especially by another company outside of Japan, they basically have to be, as you mentioned, like financially struggling. Like you can't really go out there and just buy like the most hugely successful company. Like you couldn't be Microsoft probably and just go out and buy Capcom. Because Capcom is an extremely healthy company. They're doing really, really well. Like, I have a feeling that the Japanese government wouldn't allow that. Sega has become an interesting thing because they did just get some very bad news financially. They are asking, basically, I believe the request was voluntarily for a lot of employees to basically retire, to leave the company. They sold off sold or selling off their arcade investments. Sega's Sega is in a bit of a worrying position. I wouldn't say it's one of those scenarios necessarily where Sega's for sure in dire enough straits that would be allowed. I don't know. I don't have as like deep information on Sega's financials as probably you would need to make a definitive statement on that. You know, that's something that, you know, the Japanese government and Sega and an outside party would all have to come to agreement on, that Sega's in that bad of shape. But it doesn't look good from the outside, right? Doesn't look good. So I would say that the chances of a Sega acquisition are higher now than they would have appeared maybe a year ago. Still seems like a long shot to me, though. Sony does have the capital. They could pull it off. Do I think they will? No. But it's become more of a long shot possibility than I would say an outright impossibility, if that makes sense. Still not something I'm like absolutely thinking is going to happen, but I don't think it's impossible anymore. Yeah, I don't think it's impossible. That was a little bit worrying. What's going on there. Here we go, Patrick Bitar here with some interesting information. I love getting some insights like this. Numbers from my state, Media Market in Switzerland, biggest retailer, and yes, 3,000 PS5s pre-ordered versus 250 Xbox Series X. Not a single Series S pre-order and sold since launch. Patrick, doesn't shock me. Like I said, mainland Europe, Sony just has a way more of a stronghold in that market than Xbox does. We've seen a lot of data that Xbox One completely collapsed, particularly in mainland Europe. That is really, whenever people talk about what the Xbox 360 sold versus what the Xbox One sold, the biggest market that those losses happened in was actually mainland Europe. Now, US declined as well, but it didn't decline the same way mainland Europe is. That is really where they lost the vast bulk of those sales. Microsoft is going to have to make a lot of efforts to make inroads back into mainland Europe. I still suspect Series X and S will do better there than the Xbox One did, but it ain't going to be matching PS5. It's just not going to happen. And it ain't going to happen. Mamadas Poop. That is a hilarious name. Benji, I don't know what console to get. Xbox Series X or PS5. Well, you know, this is one of those things that can only be answered by you and what you like. I would say early on, right now, like if you want to buy one right now, I would say PlayStation 5 is the more attractive offer because Sony has so many exclusives here in the first year. I mean, so many, and that you're not going to be able to play anywhere else, and you will be able to play all the third-party games there as well. That being said, Game Pass is an amazing value. I do believe that Microsoft is going to have a lot of pretty amazing games. The problem is I think that most of those games are probably like 2022 titles. So you have a bit of a wait there. So that is just my opinion. You're going to feel potentially completely different, right? This is a really hard thing to say, but I would say if you're buying one in the next month or two, you know, or you want to, I just think PlayStation 5 has way more games available early on that make a difference. So if I could only buy one, like me personally, if you're asking what I would buy, if I could only get one right now, it would have been the PlayStation 5. Just because there's so many games you're not going to be able to get anywhere else, right? Miles Morales, Demon's Souls, Horizon, Gran Turismo. There's just a lot, right? There's a lot in that first year. All right, we got about 5 minutes of chat left. So I'm going to hit just see. Oh, Dreamwalker is asking, can you see who disliked a video as the creator? I actually don't know that. This is back to me talking earlier about how I think a couple of my videos got dislike bombarded. I'm curious if it just now did. We just had a big surge of viewers, and that is what happened in my previous dislike bombardments. That's literally exactly what happened. Like the viewers shot up by about like 20 or so, and then all of a sudden like a bunch of dislikes came at once. Potentially, I don't know. Dreamwalker, I actually don't know about that. I don't know. Here's the thing, we don't need to give them attention, whoever it is. It's bitter, weird people. Like really, it's weird. If that is what's happening, like if someone's targeting my stuff, they are weird, strange people. I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm like, if you go out of your way to do something like that, that is strange. It's a weird thing to do. I don't think normal people do that. Case by Case basis here with a $10 super chat right at the end. Thank you, Case by Case. Interesting tidbit from Phil's interview yesterday. Phil mentioned that Halo's delay to next year helps them competition-wise in 2021 with Sony. That's interesting. If that's how he feels, how could Starfield not be exclusive? All right, let me read that again to understand. Okay. So, yeah, having Halo next year is a big deal. It really is. Halo Infinite has looked rough. I think most of us would agree with that. I'm still excited for Halo Infinite because I love the Halo franchise. I mean, Halo 1 all the way through Reach, I loved that franchise. In fact, at one point, Halo was like my favorite franchise in gaming. Like there was a time, y'all, right around like Halo 3, Halo Reach, I mean, Halo 2, I was like so into Halo. I loved it. Halo 4 and 5 just did not click with me. You know, they just didn't. I think a lot of people feel that way. Some people still loved Halo 4 and 5. They just did not click. That being said, Halo is still a huge franchise. It's still huge. If you look at the numbers they've sold on of Master Chief Collection on PC, it's giant. I mean, Halo still has a very strong sales ability. It might not be as big as it was at its peak, but it's still a huge franchise. It's not like Halo has become like this niche thing. I mean, we're still talking about a juggernaut franchise for Microsoft. So yeah, having Halo not at launch is a bummer for Microsoft, but as I mentioned, like these consoles are selling regardless right now because it's really the hardcores that are going out and buying them. Having Halo next year does potentially help with legs into next year. So I would still say it's a bummer it got delayed. I don't think it's like the best thing in the world it did, but that is like the optimistic way to look at the delay. Hopefully that game looks a lot better next time we see it. It needs to. Like, it needs to look much better than the last showing we saw. If they have that in Starfield exclusive next year, that's a pretty nice 1-2 duo, I would say. Yeah. I would still say it's not as strong as Sony's if everything makes it. Like, if Sony really has Horizon, really has Gran Turismo, and really has God of War Ragnarok all in the same year. Those three in particular, right? Like Gran Turismo in Europe, very big. Japan, pretty good results, probably going to be there. Horizon's going to be huge globally. God of War is going to be huge globally. I still think potentially, y'all, we don't know how big Starfield's going to be or how good. But if Microsoft has those two, if they have Halo Infinite and it ends up good, and they have Starfield and it's really good, it does give them a better spot than it might seem right now. If they don't have Starfield, I really hope they have something up their sleeve, because just Halo, I think, next year is not enough. I do think they need another big exclusive. They need more than just Halo. Halo's big, but you need something else. You can't just have one big exclusive in a year. You need to have 2 or 3. So hopefully, you know, something else is targeted for 2021 if Starfield's not. All right, everyone, I got to call the chat there. Thank you for an amazing live chat again, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't hit more questions. We've been at an hour and a half. I got to go to work. Thank you so much. There's tons and tons of questions. I know I didn't get to them all. I apologize. Everyone, if I didn't hit your free question, we're going to be back next week. Hang on to your question, bring it back, and I will try to get it to it next week with next week's live chat. If anyone, this was your first time at the chat, I hope you had a good time. All right, everyone, subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. I do one of these live chats a week for sure. Sometimes in rare occasions, 2, but usually one of these a week. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Helps the algorithm. Helps people find my videos. I will have a PlayStation 5 unboxing on this channel either Friday or Saturday. One of those 2 days, the unboxing is going to happen. Thank you, everyone, for all the super chats. Thank you, everyone, for all of the support. The last 2 live chats have done really well, y'all. I'm not a big YouTuber, but you know, the one a couple weeks ago had 2.2 thousand views, which was good for me. Last week's had 1.8 thousand views. So we're getting some really good supports for the live chats. Thank you, everyone. All right, I'm going to bounce out. I'm going to head to work. Congrats, everyone who got Series X's. Congrats, everyone that got PlayStation 5s. Play some next-gen games. Have some fun. Stay safe. Play some games. I will see you on Twitter or YouTube. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.